Hello and welcome to Better Than I Found It. My guest today on the podcast is my good friend Ryan Cabbage, the men's golf coach at UNC Charlotte. Ryan has built a really strong program, one that's on the rise, but more than the success that his team is having on the course is his unique coaching philosophy, which I so respect. He's a great young coach, and today you'll hear some of the reasons why. Enjoy the listening. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Than I Found It podcast. My guest today is a really good friend of mine, the head men's golf coach at Charlotte, Ryan Cabbage. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to spending some time with you.
Absolutely. So how's everything out in North Carolina this week?
We're doing great. We're finally starting to get a little bit of fall weather coming in, which is good. So leaves are changing, but it's perfect.
Well, you know, my wife is always looking forward to cold weather coming back. And she's not a golfer. That's so obvious. I'm not, I would just soon be 78 to 82, sunny, no wind every day of my life, but I'm not going to get that. It doesn't look like.
I'm with you there. And there are spots around the world, I guess we could get that, but I know you're happy there in Waco and I love it here in Charlotte. So we'll take the seasons as they come and go.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Well, how long have you been at Charlotte? Has it been about 11, 12, 13? What have you been at Charlotte?
This is my 11th season. So I've been here for 10 years and gosh, it flies by. I got my, I guess it was LinkedIn or something, a notification the other day congratulating me for 10 years at Charlotte. And I didn't even realize it had been 10 years, but they're fortunate to have had 10 pretty good years here. So.
Yeah, you've done great. You know, that's funny. I've always considered you as a young coach, and I guess I still have to because I'm not so young anymore. But you've obviously been around the game a long time. You got started coaching just right out of college. So you played golf at Auburn. Tell me about that experience playing for Mike Griffin.
It was, for me, I grew up in East Tennessee and kind of a non-traditional, I guess, golf childhood. I didn't start playing until I was 13 years old and went to a junior college for 2 years and had 2 good years there. I was fortunate enough to win a junior college national championship at Walter State in Morristown, Tennessee, which opened up some doors and that led to Auburn. And so for me, it was it was a little bit overwhelming there early on, just because I was immediately surrounded by players that were way better than anything I had ever been around. And so it was a pretty quick learning curve with that, but had a great time there. I was an average to maybe slightly above average player at Auburn at best, decent enough to kind of be in and out of the lineup. I did play an NCAA finals up in Chicago at Conway Farms, which was a great experience there. And, I'm just so fortunate for Coach Griffin and the opportunity that he gave to me to go to Auburn as a player, which certainly opened up a lot of doors and for opportunities to get me to where I am today as a college coach now.
Did you know you would coach right after college? I mean, was that immediate?
I did late in my career. And as I had mentioned, there were so many guys that I either played with or played against while I was at Auburn. And I look and I see that, one guy that I thought, okay, this is, a good player, but, he's having trouble making it as a pro. And I may see another guy and he's still chasing mini tours and things like that. I just, as I kind of wrapped up my career there at Auburn, I knew that professional golf was probably not for me. And I kind of come from a family of coaches, not golf coaches, but, high school basketball coaches, baseball coaches, so on and so forth. And so I think that's always been sort of ingrained in me. And late in my career there, I sat down with Coach Griffin one day and just said, Coach, I think I would like to get into coaching. And he gave me 2 bits of advice. He said, number one, either get into the PGA program or get involved in junior golf. And soon after that, this must have been maybe a month after graduating from Auburn, I was over in Athens, Georgia, working a golf camp and met a guy by the name of Todd Thompson, Todd had the Southeastern Junior Golf Tour, still has the Southeastern Junior Golf Tour, and he's also the executive director of the RSM Classic, the PGA Tour event down at Sea Island now. But I met Todd at this golf camp. He offered me a job with the Southeastern Junior Golf Tour. I was his first employee. So I was able to get into junior golf as Coach Griffin had advised. And 1 year later, the job opened up to be the assistant at Auburn. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history.
Well, that's pretty interesting how people get into coaching. I've known some guys that literally were playing and had been playing for 10 years. And then all of a sudden they decided they wanted to get in coaching and got in. I've known other guys who have started as a high school coach, become an assistant coach at college, and then eventually a head coach. That was me. So, there's a lot of different routes to take, but obviously you took a good one and you got to coach at your alma mater. That's got to be a great experience.
It was, I think anytime you already have that ingrained, we're always going to care about whatever program, we're coaching and wherever we are. But, to be at an alma mater and a place that I loved, like Auburn, it certainly was kind of icing on top for sure. But, it has changed. You mentioned, how different guys get into to coaching. I had one of our current players ask me the other day about, possibly coaching. And I was explaining to him, in the fall of 1999, college golf was way different. And coaching college golf was way different. There weren't many full-time assistant coaches around the country. It's a lot more competitive today. There are a lot more opportunities, but at the same time, it is way different, which I'm sure you can vouch for as well, than it was back in the late 90s getting into coaching college golf.
Well, in the late 90s, when I got in, for 2.5 years, you could only pay an assistant coach $16,000 a year. And my wife looked at me the day I told her that was going to be my salary when we moved to Stillwater. She thought I was crazy. But I think you got in right as that was going away, I believe.
My first salary wasn't much more than $16,000, but it was a little bit more. But I do appreciate you being the trailblazer there to get us started with all that big money that we were making back in the day.
It wasn't a lot, but I think that's the beauty of it. If you go to work for that amount of money, it's something you really, really want to do, and it's a sacrifice you have to make, but it's one that I think was necessary. So you coached for Mike Griffin for 10 years. I coached for Mike Holder for 7 years as an assistant coach. Now, the main difference was you were 23 when you started, right?
Yes, I think that's so long ago. I think I was 23 years old.
Well, I was 37, so I was already the oldest assistant coach in college golf. And so that was kind of an interesting experience. But I knew that for me, if I was going to be, if I was going to move to the collegiate level, to coach for Mike would have been a great place to start, even though I was a little older. But I was 43 when I became the head women's golf coach at Oklahoma State. So let's talk about that real quick, because after you were an assistant for many, many years, you coached women's golf as well, correct?
I did. After 10 years as an assistant for Coach Griffin there at Auburn, he retired. Nick Kleinard came to Auburn, the current head coach there at Auburn now. Nick came from Central Florida and actually brought his assistant, Evan Osteen, with him from UCF. And so I was kind of in limbo there, looking for opportunities, in the coaching, profession. And a few head coaching opportunities were open at that time. I think this would have been probably summer of 2009. Looked at some different opportunities, like I said, on the head coaching side, and then also a few assistant coaching opportunities that were open. My wife and I, Jennifer and I, had, our twins were about to go into kindergarten, and we had a 3-year-old. So, and all of a sudden, Dad basically is kind of looking for a job. And fortunately, Kim Evans called one day, our women's coach at Auburn, and a fantastic coach and an amazing lady. I know you know Coach Evans very well. And our assistant coach at that time, Courtney Trimble, it looked like she was going to get the job to be the head women's coach at Central Florida. So there was a little merry-go-round happening at that time. And Coach Evans called one day. She said, I know you're looking around, but before you make any decisions, I'd really like to talk with you about coming over and being the assistant coach with our women's team here at Auburn. And so initially I was a little bit hesitant. I had coached men's golf for 10 years and loved that. But at the same time, the family dynamic and trying to create as much stability as possible at that time with young children and so on and so forth. It was a blessing to have that opportunity. And I said yes to Coach Evans and was her assistant for 2 years on 2 extremely good teams. I got so lucky with that. The first year I was there as the assistant, I think we spent the entire year ranked inside the top 5 in the country. Just had some phenomenal players. Sydney Clanton, who plays on the PGA Tour now, was on that team. Young lady named Candace Shepperly was an amazing player on that team. So, and then the second year we won an SEC championship and spent the entirety of that year ranked in the top 15 in the country. So great experience learning from Kim and just the way that she ran her program. And at the same time, being around some extremely good players that they were easy to coach and a lot of fun. We won a lot of championships together and I played a very small role in that. I basically just kind of tag along and tell them good shot but it was an impactful 2 years for me as a coach, having worked for Kim Evans at that time as well.
Kim was an outstanding coach, no doubt about it. Hall of Famer, did a terrific job for many, many years. But so I know that I experienced an awakening almost when I coached women's golf. When I was an assistant coach for both programs at Oklahoma State, I didn't do that much. I traveled with the women occasionally, but it wasn't like I was getting the full experience. When I became the head coach at Oklahoma State on the women's side, I mean, it was an awakening. I learned a lot about myself, and I wrote about it in my book because I thought, you know what, that was one of the greatest learning experiences of my career. And I need to write about that. I learned a lot about how to coach people. And so I want to know, what was the most impactful thing you learned, not just from Kim, but just from the experience of coaching women's golf?
Yeah, I think there were a couple things there. A lot of times people ask me that, I bet, there's more drama, coaching girls. Well, there's drama coaching guys as well. So it maybe sometimes is pointed in a little bit of a different direction with the guys and the girls. But that was one thing that, I wouldn't say surprised me, but it was something that I took note of pretty quickly, that it really is, there's a lot of similarities between the guys and the girls in regards to that. It's not like there's this big gap in between on that. One of the other things, when you get to that first tee, it's about competing and it's about trying to help a player. And it doesn't matter if it's, Patton Kazire or Jason Duffner, or if it's Sydney Clanton. It's trying to help that person be the most prepared that they can be to be successful, leading up to that event, and then helping them manage their game or whatever it might be to be the best that they can be for that, 3-day period, 4-day period, whatever it might be, to achieve and to be the best that they can be. So, like I said, it was a great 2 years. I became a better coach in spending those 2 years with Kim Evans. Just her day-to-day management of the program, the accountability that she provided for those girls, and really, like I said, being a part of 2 really good teams. Those girls were focused on a daily basis. They knew exactly what they wanted to accomplish. There was a clear vision. That was one of the biggest things from Kim and that team, was the importance of having a vision for what you wanted to accomplish. Coach Evans talked a lot about not playing golf with expectations, but at the same time, they knew where the bar had been set for that program because of what Kim had done, for the previous, 8, 10, 12, 14 years that she had been there. And so that was one of the big things that I learned in those couple of years there, and that importance of creating that vision and then the accountability within the program to continue moving toward that vision on a daily basis.
And that's really good. I think one of the things I learned at coaching women's golf was the importance of coaching them differently, meaning there's different buttons to push. And when I got back on the men's side, I realized that every single player I coach might have a different button to push, meaning you got to treat people, even though you're coaching a team in a college golf situation, you got to treat them as individuals and meet them where they are. And I don't think I ever really knew that before. I think I just thought everybody should hear the same exact message. And I was wrong.
I completely agree. And I have certainly fallen victim. And I would think most coaches early in their career, especially, kind of fall victim to that. We all have these thoughts and ideas on this is the way we're going to run our program and this is the way we're going to coach. And then number one, I think you kind of sort out who you are as a coach. And one of those things in sorting through that is having that understanding that, a team of 10 players, 12 players, whatever it might be, each player is different and there are different buttons to push, with each player to try to get the most out of them. Some guys and girls are more inclined to respond to, a little kick in the pants, so to speak. You have others where the message has to be presented completely different, with that. But I think that's one of the cool things in sports and in coaching, is being able to figure that out through communication and in order to help those be the best that they could be.
That's great. I love that, hearing that. And I know that you're still a young coach, though. I mean, how old are you right now?
I just turned 46.
I still think of that as very young. So you're kind of still right in the middle of it. There's got to be a lot of learning going on for you. And so let's talk about what you've taken. You inherited the golf program at Charlotte. How many years ago? 10, you said?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the biggest differences between maybe what you inherited and what you've tried to create? And how have you been able to develop that program at Charlotte? Because you guys are absolutely a developing program. You guys are getting better and better every year.
Yeah, I think that you come from a place like Auburn where I had spent 12 years and the recruiting aspect, first and foremost, was probably the biggest difference. Just because, I come in here guns a-blazing and we're going to go recruit the same guys and girls that we were recruiting at Auburn. And that's probably not reality. It took me a little while to figure that out, to find the right fit for our program here at Charlotte that was going to be a different type of player than maybe what we were recruiting or what I had recruited for 12 years, there at Auburn. And then as a coach, I think, again, we have ideas and we have thoughts, and I'd gathered a lot of information about, I guess, the right way to run a program, and learning what Nick Saban does and what, Billy Donovan did with his basketball program at Florida, what Mike McGraw does with his golf programs, and Bruce Hepler with his golf programs. Well, then I had to understand that, okay, yes, I need to gather that information, and that's important. And that's fantastic information. But I had to kind of figure out my identity as a coach to be able to put my stamp on the program at Charlotte. And that was going to be completely different than what my stamp would have been at Auburn as an assistant coach. Obviously, the head coaching role, and then at a different school. So I think for me, it was a little bit of a learning process. I think we've kind of sorted that out. We kind of find our niche in the recruiting, and we find our niche or my niche as a coach in building and continuing to build relationships with the guys in the program and things like that. So we're excited about the future, and we hopefully continue moving in the right direction.
Well, I think you're doing a great job there. I really do. But I'm going to ask you this question, and you've got to talk about yourself here a little bit. What's your greatest attribute as a coach? What do you consider to be your strongest attribute?
I would say, gosh, what a great question. A developer And I kind of say that in a general way, because I think a developer in regards to athletics, in their golf game, but also a developer on a personal level. I'm not, I've said many times, I'm not a golf instructor. For guys, if they expect that they're going to come to Charlotte and get a golf lesson from me every afternoon, then they're coming to the wrong spot. That's not going to happen in our program. Now, we do help guys get better. We help them kind of what we talked about before, create a vision and a focus level for themselves. And guys do get better in our program. But that's not just from standing on the practice tee and watching them hit golf balls. That might be making sure that their time management is where it needs to be, making sure that their priorities are in line, and holding them accountable if they kind of lose their way just a little bit, which is easy for college kids to do, 18 to 22 years old and away from home for the first time. And it's important. So I would say a developer, both on a personal level and on an athletic level, to help the young men that come into our program achieve whatever their goals and whatever their dreams might be. The majority of our guys want to go on and play the PGA Tour, just like the guys that come into your program at Baylor. The reality of it is some will and some will not. So I think if I can have an impact on the young men that come into our program to help them be the best they can be on the golf course, but at the same time, have a servant mindset and an approach that helps them and be an example that helps them maybe to understand how to be a better dad or how to be a better father and husband one day down the road. That's I think probably my greatest quality. I hope it is anyway. I know that's my why. I know that's a key term. These days people talk about why you do what you do. That's why I do what I do. And I hope that my greatest quality and why I'm in coaching and trying to have an impact on these young men, I hope they walk hand in hand.
That really is good. I would like to paraphrase one of the great coaches of the 20th century. His name was Amos Alonzo Stagg. He coached at University of Chicago and then finished at Pacific in football. But somebody asked him one day about his team that won the national championship. He says, "Is this the best team you've ever coached?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. Ask me in 20 years. And the reporter asked him, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'll find out what kind of fathers they become, what kind of businessmen, how they add to this world we're living in. I won't know that for 20 years. So that's when I'll know what kind of team I had." So I think what you just said described the same thing he was talking about, which is like, we want to have a great golf team, and you fight for that ranking, you fight to get that recruit, you're doing everything you can, but ultimately you're trying to make them the best men they can possibly be as they go out into society.
Yes. A guy asked me the other day, how would players on our team describe me? And I said, as a coach that cares, and it goes into all the developmental stuff that we just talked about. And it was on a podcast, and then one of our guys on our team currently happened to listen to it, and he said to me the other day, he said, "Coach, I listened to your podcast." He said, "That last answer about how we would view you as a coach, and you said that you hoped that it would be as a coach that cares." He said, "You're spot on there, Coach. You're doing it. You're checking that box in a big way." It made me. It absolutely made not only my day, my week, my year, to know that okay, there is an impact that's happening here. I don't know if all the guys on our team feel that way, but at least one came up and he felt like saying that, "Coach, you're doing what you hoped that you were doing, and you're having the impact that you hope that you're having. So keep doing what you're doing." It was a pretty cool coaching moment, which was fun.
Well, I think that's better than a Coach of the Year award. It's better than carrying a trophy home. It's something that's, even though it's not tangible, it's with you forever. You got to love that. Yes. Speaking of that, you and I both were longtime assistant coaches. I think I was one when I worked for Jay Sewell at Alabama. That was my eighth different year as an assistant coach, and you were one for 10. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think the most important attribute is for an assistant coach? Because there's a lot of young assistant coaches that listen to this podcast, a lot of guys that want to get into coaching that listen to this podcast that believe, I want to coach. That's what I want to do. So what would your advice be for those young coaches, and what are the greatest attributes of the young assistant coaches? And we're going to talk about yours in a moment.
I think number one, work ethic. Obviously, there are some tireless, thankless hours in the office and on the road recruiting. As assistant coaches, I think that's first and foremost. I think supplementing maybe areas that the head coach needs some help. As head coaches, we don't check every box. We're not great at every single thing. So I think for an assistant coach to be able to kind of evaluate, and I think it's okay to have those conversations with the head coach and say, hey, coach, let me help you in this area. For some guys that might be with technology, or with other guys it might be with organization or whatever it might be. But I think the really good assistant coaches supplement areas that the boss needs some help to kind of create a total package that allows that particular program to be successful. And I think it's okay to have those conversations with the head coach. I think from there, always trying to think one step ahead. Okay, what do we have coming next? How can I help the head coach with something that maybe he hadn't asked me to do yet, but where can I get on the front side of this in particular areas with with our program? But ultimately just continuing to work hard and do everything that they can to help that head coach create the best program possible to hopefully lead to great success.
Well, you were mentioning earlier the supplementing where the coach might be weak. I'm definitely weak in technology, and Mikkel, my assistant Mikkel, has helped me with that a great deal. But he's also great with reminding me, he's one that says, hey, coach, we got to do this, or we need to do that. Or I was thinking, he's always a few months ahead in his mind, thinking where we need to be and where we need to go and the things we need to be working on. So I think that's great. I know that's why I hired Mikkel, because he's going to make me a better coach. But I recommended a young man to you that you have working for you right now, Austin King. Let's talk about Austin a little bit.
Oh, he's phenomenal. And, I mentioned when you asked me that question earlier, it's something as a head coach. I always try to hire assistant coaches that can check those boxes that I can't check. And wow, there are a lot of boxes that I can't check as a coach. And just so fortunate to have Austin in our program. Guys, talk about working hard. He shows up, he does everything that he's asked to do. And he supplements, as I mentioned before, all the areas that I can't fill as a head coach. He's an engineer, by study, and so he's way smarter than I am. I'm not afraid to admit that for sure. He does all of our data and analytics and everything else. Basically, we look at stats and he tells me what I need to know. And then I can take it from there to the guys. But I'll walk over to his office at times and there are numbers everywhere and stat sheets and everything else. He just has to put those in layman's terms for me. But Austin, he's a special young man. He's going to be a fantastic head coach one day. The biggest thing for Austin is the first box that he checks is he's a great young man. Number two, works extremely hard. He's always trying to learn, always trying to get better. He's done a phenomenal job. And I know the day is going to come when he gets a head coaching job and he has to leave our program here at Charlotte. But I'm going to try to keep him here as long as I can. And I'm not ready for that day when he moves on. I can tell you that.
Well, I feel the same way about Mikkel. And, you worked for Mike Griffin, who you played for, and Mikkel played 1 year for me at Baylor, and then is now working here, and he's just simply outstanding. I think that's one of the coolest things about college golf nowadays that maybe gets often overlooked. There are so many good young coaches. It's just like incredible.
It really is. And, I think as I continued to get older, it used to be chasing the guys that were older than me. And those were the guys that you tried to keep up with. Now, as I get to be one of those older guys, I feel like I'm not only chasing some guys that are still older than me, but the younger guys coming through that are really, really good. They're really innovative in what they do. I think college golf is in a really good spot with not only great coaches, but great men and women that are leading these programs around the country.
Couldn't agree with you more. 100% correct. Speaking of coaches, we've got an organization you and I are both a part of called the Golf Coaches Association of America. And we have an annual convention in Las Vegas in December. You're the first vice president and I'm the second vice president. So we both have big roles to play and different things. Let's talk about that a little bit. We have that convention coming up in a little over a month.
Yeah, we'll be out in Vegas in I guess early December, first week in December actually, and a great opportunity. We talk about those young coaches and any coach around the country, educational opportunities that are provided out there, networking opportunities that are provided at the convention. It's just a really good week. It gives a lot of guys an opportunity to go out and really learn and to see other coaches, have an opportunity to talk about how do they do what they do and so on and so forth to continue learning and growing as coaches. But great opportunity for those that are listening around the country, regardless of first year in coaching or 41st year in coaching, to get out and continue to learn and grow in our profession and support a great organization that continues to give back to golf coaches around the country.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't understand the All-American Awards, the Player of the Year Awards, all the different kind of awards that exist in college golf, where kids and players and coaches are recognized. That comes through the Golf Coaches Association. We couldn't have those awards without that. So it's definitely an organization I'm thrilled to be a part of, and I can't wait for the convention. I take notes every year. We have great speakers. It's a great time. It
really is, and earlier when we were talking about assistant coaches and the thankless hours that they spend doing a lot of things that might go unnoticed, college golf would not be where it is today without our Golf Coaches Association of America and Greg Grost, our executive director. And you talk about thankless hours and doing a lot of things that go unnoticed. That organization does a lot for golf coaches around the country that go unnoticed. And again, it's a great opportunity to get out there to Vegas and spend a few days with other coaches and certainly Greg Grost and his staff there in Norman with our Golf Coaches Association. Can't say thank you enough for what they do for so many.
Absolutely. And those dates are December 5th through the 8th. Would be at Planet Hollywood. And if anybody has any questions, just get in touch with either me or Coach Cabbage or Greg Grost or anybody with the GCAA if you want some information about it. We're still looking to fill out a few more spots as far as coaches for that event. But so that gets me into we're both in the off season right now, essentially, kind of preparing our team for next. Let's talk about your season a little bit. After the fall, you played in 3 events, and after the fall, you were ranked 36th in Golf Week. You've typically been there the last few years. That's a pretty good, solid, right where you fit ranking, correct?
Yes. Yeah. No, we for the past couple of years, the COVID year, we were in a good spot with NCAAs and things like that. And then last year played in an NCAA regional over in Nashville, missed advancing out to Greyhawk by only 2 shots. We ended up finishing 6th in a regional there. So yeah, I feel like we've been pretty competitive, throughout the time here. these guys won an NCAA regional championship back in 2015. So yeah, we been pretty competitive on a national level, and just hoping to continue to grow. But this year's off to a pretty solid start, as well as we move into the off season and get ready for the spring.
Where will you start in the spring? Where's your season start?
We will go down to TPC Sawgrass to the Valley course, and we'll be down there the last day in January, first day in February. So thankful we talk about seasonal weather, and hopefully we get some good days down there in Ponte Vedra. We played there last year and had a beautiful practice round day, and then the temperature dropped a little bit and the wind started blowing, and it was pretty it was pretty cold and breezy out there for 36 holes, and then the final 18 the following day. But then after that, we'll go down to the Bahamas to the tournament that Auburn is hosting, and then out to Palm Springs in late February. So we get kicked off with three pretty good trips on great golf courses.
Well, having played only 3 events in the fall, you've left yourself open to add at least one more additional tournament in the spring. So where's your conference championship this year?
We will be at Texarkana Country Club in Texarkana, Arkansas. Oh, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing golf course. It's so much fun. Our conference, we're in Conference USA, and so we play 54-hole stroke play, and then the top 4 teams advance to match play. And it's just a great week there in Texarkana. A wonderful golf course. It's great for stroke play. I think it's even better for match play. There's just so much that can happen around there. You've got some drivable par 4s and reachable risk reward par 5s. So it's a great week. I always look forward to going back to Texarkana and competing for a conference championship.
2 things, bits of trivia here. 1, Byron Nelson was the head golf professional there at one point. And number 2, a Baylor Bear owns the course record. Garrett May has the course record at Texarkana.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So did he go to Texas High School? Is that what it's called right there?
Yes, Texas High. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we use that range there right by their. It's actually their high school range, which has got to be one of the better high school facilities in the country.
Yeah.
There in Texarkana, but no, it's a great week there, and like I said, a fun golf course. So we look forward, and maybe there's a Charlotte 49er that can break that course record this year. We'll see.
I know you're hoping for that, but listen, hey, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been great just catching up with you, and I look forward to seeing you out in Vegas, and then hopefully seeing you at Greyhawk in May. Wouldn't that be a good spot to meet up again?
That would be amazing, and certainly looking forward to that. And one thing I do want to say thank you as well, for not only being a friend but being a mentor for so many years. We talked about assistant coaches earlier. If there was one bit of advice that I could give to assistant coaches around the country is find the guys that are really good at what they do, and go pick their brain, whether it's at a tournament, whether it's at a junior event recruiting, whether it's at the golf coaches convention out in Vegas. I was fortunate back in 1999, 2000, 2001, early in my career, that Mike McGraw, that Bruce Hepler, that Buddy Alexander were kind enough at various times, and I can still remember a lot of these very vividly. But they welcomed a young assistant coach at Auburn who was probably asking a few silly questions at the time, but I was just trying to learn. And you were certainly at the front of the line of those coaches that helped to mold me, not only to be the coach that I am today, but the person that I am today. So I can't say thank you enough. And if Bruce Hepler listens to this, I know he's a great mutual friend of both of ours. There are so many guys around the country that I need to say thank you to. But like I said, you're at the top of the list for what you've done for Ryan Cabbage, but what you've done for college golf as well. And you always put others in front of yourself. And I can't say thank you enough for all of that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to give you some props here. real quick before we finish. And that is, I had told you about a machine in Stillwater, Oklahoma, that I had sort of been working on every day. It was called a Stairmaster, the Gauntlet. And I'd been telling you about it for years. It was almost this mythical creature of a beast of a machine. And you were going to come out and recruit at the Ping Invitational in Stillwater several years ago. You were young. And I said, hey, one morning we'll get up real early and go do the Gauntlet. And I was just smiling, thinking, this will kill the poor guy. He won't survive this. And I'm going to tell everybody, all my listeners, I was duly impressed. You absolutely destroyed that machine that morning. So I just want to let everybody know you're a lot tougher than anybody would ever give you credit for.
Well, what you did not know on that fateful morning in Stillwater is that I had been training for that morning for probably 2.5 or 3 years. We had a Stairmaster. We had a Stairmaster in Auburn in the same weight room that our guys would train, at 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was, 3 days a week. So while they're doing all their lifting and doing everything, I'm on the Stairmaster. So this goes on for years leading up to that day in Stillwater. And so it sounds like I did a pretty nice job of acting like I had no idea what a Stairmaster was. But I had been training for that day. That was my Olympic game right there. So I'm glad I came
Ryan,
through.
You've just given us another lesson for this podcast, the importance of preparation. You prepared for that day.
I had heard about that Gauntlet in Stillwater for a long time. And so, yeah, maybe something else for those assistant coaches out there is spend some time preparing, because you never know when that moment is going to come, whether it's on a step mill or whatever it might be.
Well, you passed the test that day, but hey, listen, Ryan, thank you so much. Best of luck. We'll see you in a month and a half in Las Vegas, huh?
You got it. Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, and always enjoy catching up with you and spending time with you.